Hare Krishna, thank you everyone for coming tonight for our Sunday feast. You can now all turn and face this seat, and we'll have a talk now from 6 until 7. Tonight's speaker is Dvijamani Dasa Brahmachari. Many of you know him, but for those of you who don't, he has been practicing Krishna consciousness for, I'm not sure how many years. He's been in the ashram here now for, this is his fourth year here in the ashram. And he helps out with a number of services around the temple, but mostly his main service is going out and sharing books about Krishna consciousness, just like Govardhan, who spoke recently. So he'll give a talk tonight. This is Dvijamani Dasa Brahmachari. And his talk tonight will be on the 5 most potent forms of devotional service, which is discussed in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Manachari Yamunatira Manachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Om Vishnu Paramahamsa Privrajikacharya Stotra Shat Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Korti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Once again, welcome everyone to the Sunday Feast lecture. My name is Dvijamani Dasa. It's nice to see all of you today. And we'll speak today on Bhagavad Gita chapter 10. This is text number 9. Krishna. If you have a Bhagavad Gita, you can follow along. This is the opulence of the absolute. So text number 9. Machitam. Before we begin, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so this is Sanskrit. Machita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam. It's a famous text. Kadhayantas chamam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Anyone would like to recite this text? It's a famous text in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So, translation. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. And this is the purport. Pure devotees whose characteristics are mentioned here engage themselves fully in the transcendental love and service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna, and they talk so solely on the transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the qualities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing Him with other devotees. So this is wonderful how Srila Prabhupada says that devotees, they are constantly engaged in glorifying the Supreme Lord, 24 hours. And if we think about it, it's a lot of time, all of our time. Sometimes we hear that devotees doing night to night when they sleep, when they go to bed. They also think of Krishna. They never forget Krishna even in their sleep. And I'm sure most of you have seen the example of His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami. He was offering puja in his sleep, as a video recorded was on YouTube. So Srila Prabhupada says that 24 hours a day. And of course, if Srila Prabhupada says that, that means it's possible. It's something that we can aspire for. So in the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish, devotees, the transcendental pleasure from the service itself. And in the mature stage, they are actually situated in love of God. Once situated in that transcendental position, they can relish the highest perfection which is exhibited by the Lord in His abode. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of the living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe. And out of them, there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee and get a chance to understand devotional service. This devotional service is just like a seed. And if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, if he goes on hearing and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and that seed fructifies, just as the seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plan of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into Brahma Jyoti, effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also that plan grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavan, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as a plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits, and the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. So this is how we nourish that seed, by constantly engaging in hearing and chanting at any stage of spiritual perfection. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 19. It is explained there that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in love of God. And then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord. Just as a fish cannot live without water, in such a state, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord. This is a very interesting example of a fish. I'm sure you all heard that example. But Srila Prabhupada states it here that we are in this material world, and the situation is as of a fish being out of water, being out of river or the ocean. And even if we give facilities, very comfortable facilities to that fish, if we buy a television and dress the fish nicely in warm or comfortable clothes, and if we put a little bath and place that fish in that bath, it's still not going to do anything to the fish because it's an unnatural situation. So similarly for the jivas, being here in this material world is also unnatural. So therefore, no matter how much we try to comfort our living here, we're not going to be fully satisfied and happy. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narrations about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and His devotees. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees. As stated in the Bhagavatam itself, 12, 13, 18, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yat Vishnavanam Priyam. In this narration, there's nothing about material activities, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and His devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literatures, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association. So that's the end of the purport. Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatrubhesha Kripasindubhe Evacha Patidanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'd like to take this moment to offer my great respects to all of you for your commitment and contribution to our community, coming regularly to participate in wonderful activities of chanting, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing classes generally, and associating with each other, taking prasadam and doing seva in the kitchen or elsewhere. Thank you so much for that. It means a lot to us, and it really makes a community, makes a family. And I just desire to be a better servant in your association and a better person. So I'm happy to be with all of you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on Srimad Bhagavad Gita today. Hare Krishna. So at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes or glorifies the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he states that Srimad Bhagavatam is a perfect Purana. It's a narration that can help us understand the reality of things. What's actually the reality? And it's very dear to the Vaishnavas who are pure in the heart. And Srimad Bhagavatam, it's sufficient in itself for realization of God. Those realized souls, or trying to be realized, they actually take pleasure in discussing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, all the topics. And the whole purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is actually to give us an opportunity to take shelter in the holy name, to take shelter in the leelas, transcendental activities of the Lord and the devotees of the Lord. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam there's a nice text. It is described that just when there's a drug and we're sick, or if drug is a medicine, the best way for that drug to enter into our system is through the veins, intravenously. So similarly, if we want to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, the best way to understand Srimad Bhagavatam is if it comes through the ear, through the ears. Especially in association of devotees in sadhu sangha. So this chapter of Bhagavad Gita describes different vibhutis, the opulences of Krishna. And they actually are innumerable, but Krishna just touches on a few of them, so we can have at least some understanding of how opulent and beautiful Krishna is. Sometimes people say God is great, but if you ask them how great, can you describe? Can you tell us a little bit about God? Most of the times it's really difficult for people to answer that question. But we have Bhagavad Gita, we have Srimad Bhagavatam, and in these narrations we understand that actually Krishna is the most, all attractive. He attracts everyone. And in the beginning of our practice, I also speak from my own experience, Krishna attracts us through sending devotees to us. And devotees have amazing qualities. They just look very jubilant and happy. So Krishna comes and attracts us through his devotees. And of course, we cannot understand Krishna by any conventional means. Meaning that we cannot approach Krishna by logic or just by trying to materially understand him. In this Chatur Shloka of Bhagavad Gita, we understand that Krishna is controlling both spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from him. And those who understand that, or begin to understand that, they're so fortunate as to meet a devotee who guide them and shows them by example that this is the way, this is what I dedicate my life to. If we are fortunate enough to meet a devotee like that, then we engage in activities which will satisfy Krishna, devotional activities. And then by engaging in devotional activities and dedicating our mind and our life in service to Krishna, then we feel blissful. Tushyanti, ramanti, tushyanti cha ramanti cha. We feel happy, we feel transcendentally blissful and satisfied. And then in sadhu sangha, engaging in discussing these activities, and repeating after the message of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastimes, it's such a glorious thing that we get intelligence by Krishna. Krishna gives us intelligence. And then we begin to further understand more details and more things we might not have understood in the first place. That's why reading these wonderful books that we have is amazing. You always get new realizations. And then Krishna is so merciful to us that he dwells in our hearts. He's in our hearts. So if he sees our desires to come, to approach, and to discuss, and to glorify his messages, and associate with devotees, on the foundation of course, glorifying devotees and the holy name, Srimad Bhagavatam, then with the shining lamp of knowledge, he destroys all the darkness from within our heart. So that's how fortunate we are. Krishna manifests himself internally as a super soul and helps us to guide us in spiritual life. And also he comes as a spiritual master if he sees that we are ready to accept a spiritual master. So I decided to speak about the 5 most important forms of bhakti because it's really essential, and that's the whole summarization of, we can say, sadhana bhakti, the process of sadhana bhakti. We all have our love in our heart, and that love could be differently expressed. For example, it could be expressed through lust, and lust is like spoiled milk. It's still milk, but it's spoiled. And it's kind of embarrassing to offer someone spoiled milk, right? So we don't want to offer spoiled milk. Although some people might say that I can still drink the spoiled milk. And we can, but chances are that we will be sick from drinking that spoiled milk. So we'll speak about love often, but we also don't have full understanding, or people don't have full understanding what that love is. I remember I was, when I first came to America, I was about 6 years ago or something like that. And I went to Santa Monica, I went to Los Angeles. And it was a wild evening. Everyone was drinking and going to the bars and restaurants. And I remember I met a person who was sitting on the bench, and I didn't know who that person is. So I approached him, and he was a homeless person. And he was also having he was introspecting. He was contemplating on life. And he told me that, people, when they say they love someone, they actually don't understand what love is. They're so selfish. They're always motivated by something when they approach people. They want something from them. And so usually what stimulates us to act and to live is that passionate nature, that lust, Bhagavad Gita describes, is born out of that passion. But then, if we stimulate it by lust, it also causes or generates laziness at the end, or tiredness. We feel that there's unwillingness to do anything. So that's the nature of this world. If we approach life by lust, if we act out of lust, eventually it is met with ignorance. And the symptoms of ignorance described in Bhagavad Gita: we feel lazy, we feel like we don't want to do anything, and it's unsatisfying. It actually destroys us, destroys the purity within us. It's like a cycle, like a snake eating its own tail. So therefore, Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedic teachings that we study, it helps us to understand that we should actually, there is passion, but that passion should be utilized for a good purpose, devotional activities. So in this way, even though we have that passion, we can realize that in service to Krishna. And that way, it can properly be utilized. For instance, we have our youth, and if we use our youth for Krishna, if we serve Krishna in our youthful days, it's the best thing, because eventually we'll, if we do everything properly, following the rules and regulations, we can be situated in the mode of goodness, uplifted to the mode of goodness. And from that platform, the symptoms are described in the Bhagavad Gita. Does anyone remember the symptoms of the mode of goodness? What will we feel? How will we feel in the mode of goodness? Blissful. Happy, in other words. Satisfied and happy. Any other guesses? Or peaceful, yeah. We'll also be in knowledge. Two things developed in the mode of goodness. We feel happy, and we develop knowledge. So, and kama can get out of hand. It can easily get out of hand. We see it all the time. There's a text in the Bhagavad Gita, Dhayato vishaya pumsam sangasta sepajayate, that the kama, if it gets out of hand, it eventually turns into madness. Lust turns into madness. And if that madness is directed against ourselves, it causes symptoms of depression. And when we feel depressed, we're completely helpless in many ways. We need help, we need guidance. So depression is a severe affection of that lust, of that kama. And just like if we have a mental illness, if we experience that madness and depression, a qualified psychiatrist can come and understand. They can come and give us a remedy and cure, give us diagnosis and treatment. So similarly, by practicing sadhana bhakti, by engaging in favorable activities of sadhana bhakti, which are described in the Nectar of Devotion and Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, we can also get that cure we're looking for, cure of that madness, of that passionate nature. So in bhakti, we understand that devotional service could be a practice in practice or in perfection. And it's called sadhana bhakti. We employ our senses, our mind and body for the purpose of purification. Rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchite. We use everything we have for the purpose of purification. And when we do that, there will be two side effects. We'll be free from material designations, and also we will have our senses being purified. And the purpose of bhakti is to fix our mind, manmana bhava mad bhakto, on Krishna in a favorable way. There's many ways we can fix our mind, described by Srimad Bhagavatam, for instance. We can fix our mind on Krishna by enmity, like Kamsa did, or we can fix our mind out of lust desires, or fear, like the gopis. But the best, if we fix our mind on Krishna out of affection and love for Him. Anukalena Krishna Nushilanam. That's also mentioned in the beginning, in the introduction to the Nectar of Devotion. Anya Bilashita Shanyam Gyana Karma Janavritam Anakulena Krishna Nushilanam Bhakti Rutama. That is the description of Bhakti Rutama, pure devotional service. It is devoid from conceptions of karma and gyan, adi, all these things that are not helping us to mature in our bhakti. In other words, it's done for the purpose of pleasing Krishna, doing favorably. We do it favorably. And when we advance in spiritual life, we become more and more attracted to these 5 processes of forms of devotional services. And I have this Nectar of Devotion with me, so we'll read about what are these 5 potent forms of devotional services are. Maybe anyone knows them at the top of their head, remembers what are these 5 potent services, practices? Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name. What else? Residing in a holy place. 2 more. Serving in Vaishnavas, Sadhu Sangha. What's the last one? Serving the deity, exactly, yes. So this is Nectar of Devotion, chapter 13. 5 potent forms of devotional service. Rupa Goswami has stated that 5 kinds of devotional activities, namely residing in Mathura, worshipping the deity of the Lord, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, serving the devotee and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, are so potent that a small attachment for any of these 5 items can arouse devotional ecstasy, even in a neophyte. And it is also described that bhakti does not depend on anything. It doesn't even depend on our faith. Even if we don't have faith to this 5 items or 5 forms of bhakti, it still gives us the result. It's amazing. Even if we don't have knowledge of the result, we still get the benefit, you know. So bhakti doesn't depend on these things. Regarding worship of the form of the Lord or deity, Rupa Goswami has written the following verse. My dear friend, if you still have any desire to enjoy the company of your friends within this material world, then don't look upon the form of Krishna, who is standing on the bank of Keshigata, a bathing place in Vrindavan. He is known as Govinda, and his eyes are very enchanting. He is playing upon his flute, and on his head there's a peacock feather, and his whole body is illuminated by the moonlight in the sky. So this paragraph mentions how Govinda can transform our desires. And Srila Rupa Goswami, he kind of he speaks that we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't go to the Keshigat, a bathing place in Vrindavan. We shouldn't go and see Krishna, because if we actually go there, Krishna will attract us, and he will take all of the attachments and material desires we have. Especially, it's often mentioned attachments to, particular designations, family, for example. So it is mentioned that, please, Rupa Goswami says, do not go there if you want to maintain these attachments. And this reminds me of a situation we all been in. For example, in our childhood, if our mother tells us not to do something, what do we want to do? We just want to go ahead and do it. Don't eat this many sweets. Follow a diet. Eat more vegetables. What do? We want to take those little sweets and candies and cookies and eat them. So similarly, it's a form of presentation. It's kind of like a representation. Rupa Goswami trying to trick us into actually following that instruction and going to Keshigat and seeing Krishna, so we become attracted. I remember my spiritual master, His Grace Chaitanya Chandra Charan Prabhu, he was visiting Vrindavan, and at some point they wanted to bring the deities back to Russia. It's Radha Krishna deities, and so they went to a place where they sell deities. And then he liked a Murti Radha and Krishna, and he said, I'd like to get him. And then the merchant, he gave him the deities, and then my spiritual master, he noticed that Krishna doesn't have a flute. And he told him, well, what about the flute? Can you give me the flute? And that merchant, he was like kind of amazed. Wow, you really are attached to Krishna. You really do want him in the flute, with the flute. So yeah, if we hear the vibration of the flute, it's so attractive. It's actually described that the music is so sweet that all the movable living entities, they become stunned when they hear the flute, when they hear Krishna's flute. And the rivers, they become rocks, they become so ecstatic that they just stop moving, they melt in ecstasy. So that's how attractive the flute of Krishna is. So my spiritual master asked for that flute. Yes, I do need that, that's an important item. I wish we had Javira Prabhu here, who would play the flute nicely. Sometimes he does that during classes. Okay. So the purport of this verse is that if someone becomes attached to the Sri Murti of deity of Krishna, by worshipping at home, he will forget his relationships of the so-called friendships, love, and society. And then Srila Prabhupada also says that this will save everyone from such unwanted activities as going to the clubs, cinemas, and dancing parties, smoking, drinking. This is nonsense. People do those things because they have no attraction. But if in a household we install a deity, bring a deity, and begin to worship that deity, then our senses will be engaged in that archanam, in trying to, and it's a beautiful meditation too. We will doing our chanting. We'll think of the deities. When we go shopping, we'll be shopping and thinking of the deities. We'll be sewing clothes for the deities. So it's a very pleasant practice, and it completely engages us in this smaranam, in this meditation on Krishna's personal form. Rupa Goswami further writes, "My dear foolish friend, I think that you have already heard some of the auspicious Srimad Bhagavatam, which decries seeking the results of fruitive activities, economic development, and liberation. I think that now it is certain that gradually the verses of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describing the pastimes of the Lord will enter your ears and go into your heart." That's actually the whole purpose of Bhakti Yoga and developing an attraction for Srimad Bhagavatam, is that there will be a change of heart. And when we read Srimad Bhagavatam, we should really emphasize that this is real. What we're reading actually took place, and we should approach reading Srimad Bhagavatam or chanting the holy name with the emotion, because if we don't approach Srimad Bhagavatam and the holy name with emotion, then it'll be a dry practice, dry experience. It won't really give us a satisfaction on the level of the senses. But I'm sure we all had that experience. If we read Srila Prabhupada's books for longer than an hour, you just really feel satisfied and peaceful. You know, it's a really nice transcendental practice. The words of the Acharya are really amazing. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that unless one has the ability to throw out, just like garbage, the fruitive results of ritualistic ceremonies, economic development, and become in one with the supreme salvation, one cannot understand Srimad Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam deals exclusively with devotional service. Only one who studies the Srimad Bhagavatam in a spirit of renunciation can understand the pastimes of the Lord, which is described in the 10th canto. One must be situated in pure devotional service before he can relish Srimad Bhagavatam as it is. People are generally attracted to society, friendship, and love, and they make elaborate arrangements and strong endeavors to develop these material contaminations. But to see the Sri Murtis of Radha and Krishna is to forget such endeavors of material association. And sometimes what we really need for this to take place, because it is mentioned how before we approach Srimad Bhagavatam, we should be situated in pure devotional service before we can really relish Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's true, to really relish and understand the intimate pastimes of the 10th canto, the Rasa Lila. It's important to be pure, you know. But generally, to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes, or even to begin any of the devotional activities, sometimes what we need is a blessing from a senior devotee or a spiritual master. And there's a really nice example in our tradition. The example of Bilva Mangala Thakur, who was actually born in South India in a Brahmin family, but somehow or other he became attached to a prostitute, Chintamani. And he was so attached to that prostitute that when his father passed away, he didn't even feel sensitive towards the death of his father. He was always thinking of Chintamani. When will I go and see Chintamani? And at some point after the funeral, what he did, he went to see Chintamani, and she lived across the river. And on that day, it was a stormy day. There was a thunderstorm. The weather was really hectic. And to cross the river was really difficult. But he still did it. He still went for it. And at first he saw a boatman and he asked for help. But he was so mad with that lusty desire to see Chintamani that the boatman thought he was crazy. So even though he offered him money, he said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And so what Bilva Mangala Thakur did, he jumped into the river and he began swimming, and then he grabbed on a putrefied dead body. What do you call that dead body? Corpse. So and then that way he was able to cross the river. I'm sure it was a really big struggle. But again, if our lost, all the things, all this beautiful material skyscrapers and all the beautiful buildings and everything, the businesses, all these things are actually enacted by lust. This is the motivation principle in the material life. That lust, it can become so intense that it will He will give us inspiration to work hard. So similarly with Bilvamangala Thakur, he crossed the river and he went to Chintamani, but the door was locked when he reached the mansion or place where she was staying. And then he needed to go on the second floor, so he needed to climb the wall. So how do you climb the wall? He saw a rope, and that rope was a snake. But at first he didn't even notice that. So he grabbed the snake and he went up on that wall, and he saw Chintamani, and now he's seeing her. He's achieved the plan. He's right in front of her, and she's looking at him, and she's completely disgusted. She's like, you're wet, you stink, and you look crazy. You look absolutely insane. Why did you try? Why did you endeavor so hard just to come here and enjoy the bones and blood and mucus? What are you doing? You're insane. So, and then Bilvamangala Thakur realized that it's true. What am I doing? So Chintamani told him, you should go to Vrindavan. You should reside there and chant the holy name. Why are you wasting your life like that? And so Bilvamangala Thakur did that. He followed that instruction. He went to Vrindavan. But in the beginning, his lust still bothered him. So once he saw one Mataji, and he came after her to her house. And then there was a Brahman there, her husband. And he was happy to see another devotee of the Lord. And he said, I'd like to offer service to you. What can I do for you? And he said, you know what? I'd like to be alone with your wife. That's my desire. And the Brahman, he let it happen. He let him stay alone with his wife. And then what Bilvamangala Thakur did, he said, can I borrow your hairpin? And he took a hairpin from her, and he poked out his eyes. This is how he dealt with that lust. Of course, none of us have to follow that example. But simply by engaging the senses in devotional service and chanting the holy name, seeking the blessings. Recently we were discussing in the Bhagavatam how can we do better in our chanting. And one practical thing we can do is we can engage in service to the holy name. We can do something to glorify the holy name and serve the holy name. Maybe preach, tell someone about the holy name, or engage in service which will create a favorable give people an opportunity to come together and chant the holy name. We're opening new programs. So that's an example of how the holy name could be served with enthusiasm and devotion. And so eventually, the story with Bilvamangala Thakur ended in him residing in Vrindavan and chanting the holy name. And because he didn't have eyes, Krishna would personally come and bring him milk, a cup of milk. And but Bilvamangala Thakur didn't see it, So, and at some point they were together. I think he was singing or chanting, and at some point he felt that someone's near him. Krishna is near him, and he wanted to embrace him. And Krishna, he didn't let him embrace himself. But then Bilvamangala Thakur thought that maybe I can't embrace you with my physically, but I will embrace you with my heart. So we don't really have time to read and finish this chapter, but I'll just speak about the most important. So we mentioned about deity worship as one of the important forms of devotional service. Then we also spoke about reciting Srimad Bhagavatam together. And another thing is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is really important. And the fourth thing is, besides chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we reside in a holy place, Mathura. And one of the ways we can do that is we can go on pilgrimage, or we can also come to the temple. That's also a tirtha, a holy place, because we have our deities, Radha, Giridhari, and this is Vaikuntha. The atmosphere is created by the presence of the deities, Srila Prabhupada, devotees who live here, and devotees who participate in devotional service, chanting, hearing, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of the most important things in these activities is to do them constantly, never stop them. Always make sure that these activities, they take place, they go on. When actually, I won't mention that, but most important practice in our life, in this devotional services, the 5 forms of bhakti, is actually sadhu sangha, because all of the 4 limbs, and even 60, all this 39 of 40, all the 40 limbs of sadhana bhakti are supported by sadhu sangha. Because when we come in association of devotees, then we can actually engage in this limbs of devotional service, you know. And sadhu sangha, it means that we associate just like a crystal, you know, a crystal stone. It takes on or reflects the objects around that stone, around itself. So similarly, if we come in association of devotees, we also will resemble the qualities of devotees. That's why this association is so important and stressed by Srila Prabhupada and our teachers all the time. And there are 3 components mentioned for proper sadhu sangha. I'll just say these components and end there and see maybe if there's a question. But these components are as follows. First one is sajatiya. This is the mutual mood of devotional service. Bhakti means not only love and devotion, but also Srila Prabhupada translates as devotional service. So, and that's what it means in here is that we are inspired by the same practice. We worship Radha Krishna, Didi, or Radha Giridhari, and we come together, we have similar activities which inspire us. So sajati means that we have a similar mood, you know. And then second one is satovare. It means that when we begin associate with devotees, we don't just speak about our, imperfect experiences. We actually try to glorify the advanced devotees, and we always bring them up in our sadhu sangha. We speak of their realizations. We speak about how they understand Krishna, what their experiences are with Krishna, because they're actually in touch. They have a really strong and very close relationship with Krishna. So in this way, if we bring them in our sadhu sangha, bring this experiences of senior devotees, then Krishna will be pleased, and Krishna will manifest himself in that sadhu sangha. And the third one is snigdha. So that means that when we associate together, we always have to develop, we have to care for each other. We have to give favorable, we have to create favorable environment, friendly, favorable environment in which we'll feel comfortable to reveal our minds and hearts. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to speak on what's inside, what are you even contemplating and thinking about, just because the environment is not favorable. I just don't feel comfortable. I feel like I'm being judged. It's pretty common to reveal your mind to someone and tell that person, please don't keep it between ourselves. And then a person will go on and tell someone, at least one person, and that person will tell another person, and at the end everyone will know, you know. So that's snigdha. We have to be very gentle. Devotees are very gentle when they use their words. So this is how we can maximize this sadhu sangha, this association between each other. And from any point of view, human society can be reformed by Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada says. Only one thing required. We just simply need to understand what Krishna wants us to do, and try to do that sincerely in association with devotees, engaging in serving the deities by offering puja, if you have that ID card, that qualification, or just simply by dancing, chanting, bringing some bhoga for the deities, glorifying the deities, reminding each other about the deities, the holy name, chant the holy name together, Nama Kirtanam, and serving the Vaishnavas, These practices will reform our consciousness. And if we are reformed, we can extend that and help others. So I'll end here. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And we'll have time for one question, I think. Maybe two, if they're short. So if anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment, this is time. Yes, Mataji. Please, the microphone. Just the microphone coming.
Serving Vaishnava means who is truly Vaishnava. Who is truly Vaishnava, to them we have to serve. You mean?
Anyone who chants the holy name is a Vaishnava.
Okay, thank you.
But of course, there's different levels of sincerity of a Vaishnava. But generally, if we practice, if we ourselves aspiring to become a Vaishnava, there's always a community, there's always a place where we find each other. So if we come to that place, we'll see that, yeah, this is where we hang out. This is a place for the Vaishnavas, or aspiring Vaishnavas. So here, I see all of you are Vaishnavas, or aspiring Vaishnavas. So I guess the concern might be that we don't want to be exploited by offering our service. But in this regard, we'll be guided by Krishna and by other devotees. That's why Sadhu Sangha is there. We always express our realizations and how we feel. And if we feel like there's something improper in my relationship with devotees, we come to senior devotees and ask for their guidance. And in this way, we can truly understand who is worthy of my service.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Thanks for enlightening us.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
One more question. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Wonderful class. You explained it very nicely and practically. Would you talk about like chanting for neophyte, or see how they can progress, and with one round they can start, or some people say they don't have time, but if you can talk about it takes 10 minutes, or see if you can elaborate and let all of us know what is the practical way of the chanting is the foremost first.
I'm not sure if time allows the response.
I can, 2 sentences, I'll say. So, Srila Prabhupada says that in this age there's nothing more effective than chanting. So we should make a sankalpa and a vow to ourselves to chant at least one Mahamantra, one round of Mahamantra, and then go on increasing like that. And best practice is if to do it in sadhu sangha as well, in a group of devotees. And lastly is Krishna gives us protection, and the holy name can give us protection. So our mood is that we are helpless children, and so we're crying for the mercy of Krishna, and so Krishna is our Supreme Father. So if we cry for the mercy sincerely, then He will give us that shelter, and then we can feel it, and in this way be inspired to take up the chanting more seriously and increase the vows, but eventually coming up to 16 rounds. And if there are any more questions and clarifications, we can discuss further after class. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you, Dvijamani Prabhu, and thank you everyone for coming and staying for